Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Nerdy Movie News Roundup, the show where we round up all of the latest news in the past week of nerdy movies. We actually have a really big show today, a lot of stuff to talk about. It feels like it's been a while since we've been able to do that. But, yeah, let's get into it. So, first up, we got a trailer for Rick and Morty Season 7. Now, I haven't actually been keeping up with Rick and Morty. I want to do a big binge at some point, but I did just want to call it... So I didn't watch this entire trailer, but I did just want to call out the fact that the voices sound pretty much exactly the same. I know we were... Because obviously Justin Roiland isn't voicing Rick and Morty anymore. And a lot of people were obviously worried that how are they going to capture Justin Roiland's incredible performance? And they captured it. It doesn't seem like it's going to end up being that big of a deal after all. So, yeah, like, did I kind of notice a bit of a difference? Like, a little bit? But is that also because I was looking for it? Like, if I didn't know that it was a new voice actor, or voice actors that we actually don't know who exactly is voicing them, would I have been able to tell the difference? I honestly don't think so. So, yeah, go check out the trailer for yourself and let me know what you think about that. Alright, I also watched the trailer for The Hungry Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I feel like this trailer came out like last week and I just didn't get around to watching it. So, here it is. I'm talking about it now. So, by the way, just so you know, one of the big reasons why I felt like I haven't been able to keep up with TV shows and trailers in a timely manner is because I was a victim of a hurricane and I still don't have internet. So what I have to do is I have to go to somewhere that has internet, download the trailer on like a hard drive, and then bring it home and react to it at home. So, and then eventually upload the video going somewhere that has internet to upload the video. It's annoying. It's how I've been having to run my channel as of late. So just bear with me. But anyways, this was an okay trailer. I don't really have much to I don't have much knowledge of the book that this is based off of, because I do believe that there is a Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes book. It's not just studios wanting to milk the Hunger Games IP. But yeah, it seems like it's about President Snow. He's a youngster, and there's like a girl that he falls in love with, and it seems like there's going to be some kind of tension with that girl. So because of their falling out, it seems like, at least the trailer is giving me vibes that something is going to happen between him and this girl that just like makes him turn full on evil. So I don't know. It sounds interesting. Women, it is their fault. Absolutely. Andrew Tate. Yes. True. No accountability for men. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see if this movie turns out any good. It looks okay. Okay, so first up, it looks like Jamie, oh my god, I'm forgetting her name. Jamie Lee Curtis, yes, it looks like she's gonna play this, One Piece character. Her name is Dr. Kureha. So she posted an Instagram post where she posted, like, fan art of her as this character. And she was like, "Hey guys, I definitely want to play this character. Once the actor strike is over, I'm gonna be vying to play her." And then one of the producers responded to her and said this: "Mommy dearest, that's why we sent you that figure. No need to lobby. Once we get what we deserve and get back to work, let's talk." So yeah, it seems like a pretty. I mean, it's not a done deal, but it seems like the producers behind the One Piece Netflix show and want Jamie Lee Curtis to play this role, and it seems like Jamie Lee Curtis wants to play the role. I haven't watched One Piece, neither the anime or the Netflix series, so I don't have much investment in this, but I do want to watch One Piece. Maybe once I watch One Piece, when I say watch One Piece, I mean watch the Netflix show. God, no, I'm not watching the the million episodes of the anime. But once I do watch the Netflix series, maybe I too will be like, I need Jamie Lee Curtis in this show. She would fit with the vibes. I don't know. We'll see. All right, next up, it looks like Star Wars Jedi 3 is in development. I guess that's what we refer to as the series, which is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order and Star Wars Jedi Survivor. I never thought about it. I guess the name of the series is Star Wars Jedi, but either way, who cares? Let's read this from CBR. Cal Kestis actor Cameron Monaghan has said that he is currently working on a third Star Wars Jedi game. During a panel at Ocala Comic-Con, and Monaghan said, "We're working on a third, and that we're in the process of doing that right now. That's a big undertaking, and there have been some conversations so far, but hopefully when all things are said and done, we'll be able to go in and make something really cool." Yeah, so a third Star Wars Jedi game seems obvious, but I do remember that there were some like reports that maybe that the second game was selling below expectations, but it always feels like a video game can sell millions of copies and somehow they're selling below expectations because the AAA video games industry is so bloated at this point that, as Jim Sterling would say, they don't just want some of the money, they need all of the money in the world. So I don't know. At the end of the day, do I think we're going to get a third Star Wars Jedi game? I have to assume so. So when he says that they're working on it, I do actually believe that they're probably like doing like pre-production and all of that. And I think it's most likely going to happen. And also, I didn't play the second Jedi Survivor game yet, so I don't know if it ends in such a way that feels definitive and that you don't need a third game, or like if it ends in such a way that it's like, oh yeah, they obviously want to make a third one. I don't really know. So we'll have to wait and see. All right, next up, we have our first look at Angstrom Levy from Invincible. So if you don't know, this is a character from the Invincible comic. He's going to be in the second season of the show, it looks like. And yeah, I don't want to say too much about this guy because he's I guess all I'll say is that he's a pretty important character. So, but I don't want to necessarily spoil anything. So, there you go. All right, next up, Martin is back at it like a bad habit. So, he had some stuff to say about franchise movies. It's weird. He technically doesn't just talk about comic book movies, but all of the websites are like in their headlines. They're like, Martin Scorsese slanders comic book movies, even though it's like this time that's not really what's happening. But anyways, we'll read his quote. So it was in an interview with GQ. Once again, Scorsese said, "It got to the point where I just said I'm no longer making films." And yet, within a few years, he talked himself into 2006's The Departed, with DiCaprio again. Another story Scorsese found himself wanting to tell, and once again ultimately regretted trying to make when Warner Brothers purportedly asked if one of the two leads in the film, played by DiCaprio and Matt Damon, could live. Spoiler alert, they do not. What they wanted was a franchise. It wasn't about a moral issue of a person living or dying. It was about having a character that could survive for another film. Studios, he said, are not interested any longer in supporting individual voices that express their personal feelings or their personal thoughts and personal ideas and feelings on a big budget. And, sorry, my phone. And what's happened now is that they've pigeonholed it to what they call indies. But he does see trouble in the glut of franchise and comic book entertainment that currently makes up much of what you can see in a theater. The danger there is what it's doing to our culture, Scorsese said, because there are going to be generations now that think movies are only those. That's what movies are. They already think that, which means that we have to then fight back stronger, and it's got to come from the grassroots level. It's got to come from the filmmakers themselves. And you'll have, the Safdie brothers, and you'll have Chris Nolan, you know what I mean? And hit them from all sides. Hit them from all sides and don't give up. Let's see what you got. Go out there and do it. Go reinvent. Don't complain about it, but it's true. Because we've got to save cinema. Cinema could be anything, Scorsese said. It doesn't just have to be serious. Some like it hot. That was Cinema, for instance. I think that's like a comedy from like the 1960s that he's bringing up. But I do think that the manufactured content isn't really cinema. It's almost like AI making a film. And that doesn't mean that you don't have incredible directors and special effects people doing beautiful artwork. But what does it mean? What do these films, what will it give you? Aside from a kind of consummation of something and then eliminating it from your mind, your whole body, So what is it giving you? Okay, so interesting stuff. I think that this is a definitely a better statement than what he has said in the past, because I'm not gonna lie. I thought a lot of what he said in the passage is really silly. Like I remember initially he had said that comic book movies weren't cinema, or technically he said Marvel movies weren't cinema, and I was like, okay, like I think that's kind of a silly way to say it. Like I think all movies are cinema. Like I think they're all art, in that sense. And then he, and then he went out and he was like, yeah, Marvel movies, they're not about human emotion. they're they're not about like love or something. It was like, what do you like? Again, you can like or dislike Marvel movies. They're obviously about emotionality and trying to get you to feel things. It's like, what are you talking about, Martin? um and then after that he came out and he was like, Marvel movies are driving other kinds of movies out of the cinema. And I'm like, that's not true. Like, just open up your movie theater app. You can find plenty of movies that aren't Marvel movies. Actually, you know what? I always like doing this test live. I promise I haven't checked this before. I'm just going to look at what's available in my movie theater. Let's see. Not editing this. I am pulling up the app right now. Okay, so we have The Blind. This seems like an original movie. We have Blue Beetle. That's a franchise film, sure. Then we have The Creator. This is an original, big budget sci-fi movie that's most likely gonna bomb. So, if you agree with what Martin's saying here, you better go watch The Creator. But you're not going to. But you are gonna watch frigging Dune 2 or whatever when that comes out. Then you have Dumb Money. That's an original movie. The Equalizer 3, franchise movie, sure. Expendables, that's a franchise movie, sure. Haunting in Venice, franchise movie, sure. Then you have The Hill. That's an original movie. I Can. That's an original movie. It Lives Inside. This looks like an original movie. Meg 2 The Trench. Sure, that's a franchise movie. The Nun 2. Sure, that's a franchise movie. Paw Patrol The Mighty Movie. That's a franchise movie. Saw X. Sure, that's a franchise movie. Then you have Talk to Me. That's an original movie. And you have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. That's franchise movie, sure. So, like, I'm not saying that there aren't a lot of franchise movies, but if you want to watch original movies, you can go out and watch them. You just don't do it. You don't do it. But anyways, so yeah, but then what he's talking about here, and I don't know if maybe that's a lot of what he was referring to, I do find a lot more reasonable. Like, when he's talking about the fact that studios oftentimes interfere, studio interference, and want things to become big franchises and continue on, and they don't just want to do one and dones. I mean, I feel like that's almost certainly true. And what he was talking about were the studios were like, I've never seen The Departed, but if the studio, it sounds like both cops dying at the end is like important to the story. And if the fact that the studios either didn't understand or didn't care, and we're like, no, we want The Departed Part 2, Electric Boogaloo, so we leave Leonardo DiCaprio alive. Like if that was a thing, that definitely sucks. It sounds like that sucks. So I definitely agree with that. But I think the main thing that I would say that I disagree with is when he brings up the fact that, like, audiences aren't watching indie movies because they're called indie movies. And it's like, I don't think that's true. I think that audiences aren't watching non-franchise movies because they don't want to watch non-franchise movies. Like, this idea that there's like a prejudice against independent movies or more original movies and that theaters don't want to show them, I think that's a lie. Because whenever theaters, like I can't tell you how many times I've gone to see like a more indie movie. Like, I like to always bring up The Northman. Like, I remember I went to go see The Northman and there was like 2 other people in the theater with me. Because of experiences like that, I don't take any, like, Martin Scorsese, or I don't take any of these people crying about franchise movies seriously, because it's at the end of the day, and it's also because they try to like blame studios and stuff like that, and they try to blame movie theater chains when The only fault here is you, the audience. And it feels like nobody is like, it feels like people are too scared to actually just say what it is. You guys don't watch them. It's you. The people, the general audiences. You just don't want to watch those kinds of movies. That when a new Marvel movie comes out, you do want to watch it. It just is what it is. Now, will that change in the future? Hopefully. But I don't think that I don't think that there's much that studios or movie theaters can do at the end of the day, because like just giving a movie more screens isn't going to make it more popular. When a movie's limited screens isn't selling out, it's because people aren't interested in it. It's not because they don't have more screens. So like, and like there have been movies like Everything Everywhere All at Once. I remember that movie opened in very limited screenings, and then it started doing really well. And theaters were like, "Oh, this movie is doing well. Let's give it more screens." Like, it's not like that doesn't happen, right? Like, it's not like movie theaters are like, "Oh, this is an indie film. We can't give it more screens even though it's successful." It's like movie theaters don't care. As long they're gonna give screens to a movie that they think it's good, that's going to do well, right? Like in my movie theater, it's like Barbie has had like many screens for a really long time. It's not because it's a studio film. It's because the movie's successful. Whereas like Blue Beetle never really had as many screens as Barbie in my movie theater. So yeah, I don't know. I just find the discourse around this to be a little frustrating, because it feels like nobody just wants to honestly talk about like what the actual problem here is, and it is you. It's the general audience. You are the one that doesn't want to go watch indie movies. You don't want to watch original movies. You only want to watch franchise movies. Now, does it look like it's changing? Somewhat. Like, we're kind of seeing the fall of Marvel. We're seeing the fall of DC. My only thing is, like, are we now going to see an influx of Oppenheimers? I don't know, because I to a certain extent, it's like, is the success of Oppenheimer because it's an original movie and not a Marvel movie? Or is it because of the Barbenheimer meme and Christopher Nolan being like one of the few directors that can sell movies? Because I feel like if it were true, if like people were like, no, we don't want to watch Marvel movies, we want original movies, then the creator would be doing better than it currently is. And it's not. To me, what I'm scared of is that Marvel is falling off, and DC is falling off, and Star Wars is falling off, and I don't think that that's necessarily going to mean that audiences are now going to watch other kinds of things. I think it just might mean that they're going to watch less movies. Honestly, I think that's probably that's possibly what's going to end up happening. So I don't know. I think that the attacking of franchise movies, and the other thing I'll say is that the attacking of franchise movies and of Marvel movies and comic book movies and whatever, it seems just wholly unproductive. Like, what we need to do is to get the people that watch these movies to watch other kinds of movies. I don't think that saying that the movies that those people like aren't cinema, saying that they're not art, that they're not about human emotion, because does Martin, and obviously he doesn't understand this, but do you not understand that if you tell somebody that watched Avengers Endgame and cried about the death of Spider-Man, that watched Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and cried over Rocket's backstory, do you not understand that you telling them that those movies aren't about human emotion, that those movies are just like, they feel like they're AI generated? Do you not understand that you like chastising them and telling them that those movies are bad, that those movies aren't about emotion? Do you not realize that that's not going to get them to watch the Killers of the Flower Moon? You understand that that's not going to get them to watch Lolita? Like, do you not realize that? I don't know. So at the end of the day, I'd like for general audiences to give other kinds of movies a shot. I think that would be cool, but I don't think that bullying them into doing that is going to work. Like, I don't like, Why doesn't Martin Scorsese start a Twitter account and just be like, "Hey, these are the movies that I've been watching this week"? Because literally, the only time I ever see Martin Scorsese in the headlines is because he's talking about something that he dislikes. I don't even know what he likes. Like, what recent movies does Martin like? Like, wouldn't it be cool if Martin Scorsese actually cared about this? He should be going on Twitter and being like, "Hey, I watched this movie and this movie and this movie from this director, from this director, from this director." So, I don't know. I could go on about this for a long time. So, yeah, just to wrap it all up, general audiences, I wish they would watch more movies. I don't think that bullying them into doing so is going to work. I don't think that eradicating Marvel and comic book movies is going to suddenly make all these other movies make the same amount of money. I think that those kinds of movies are available. They are available in movie theaters. You just don't go watch them. And it is what it is, you know? So, oh, sorry. Actually, I did want to bring up something else. Just looking at it broadly, especially when he says that, like, when Martin says that indie movies, studios don't want to give those kinds of movies big budgets. And it's like, true, but those movies are still being made. And it's like, they're still there. They still exist. Do they need massive budgets? Like, for example, he brings up the Safdie brothers. The Safdie brothers are doing their thing. They're doing their thing. They're making their movies. And they're good. You know? Plenty of indie movie directors are doing their thing. They're making their movies. They're going to festivals. They're making their rounds. And, you know, they're able to get these made. I do kind of... It feels like Martin Scorsese is now just saying that he wants his... how should I say this? It's felt like Martin Scorsese is just mad that he hasn't been able to get his more recent movies funded by studios. And I think that is wholeheartedly because Martin Scorsese is stubborn and he wants massive budgets. Like, there's no real reason why The Irishman had to cost $150 million. It's like, but they had to de-age Robert De Niro. It's like, just get a different actor. You did not have to cast Robert De Niro in that movie. Get a different actor. Use makeup to make him older, or get a younger actor and then get Robert De Niro to play the older counterpart. Robert De Niro did not have to act in all of those movies. In fact, doing that would have made the movie significantly better because you wouldn't have had a horrifying fucking PS4 model Robert De Niro running around. You know? I haven't seen Killers of the Flower Moon yet. I am so fascinated to see why that movie cost over $200 million to make. I am so curious. Like, I better see Native Americans coming out of Endgame portals to take back their land. I'm so curious. I'm like I look at Martin Scorsese's current situations, and it feels like he's upset because studios don't want to make his movies anymore. But what I would tell Martin is that I don't think it's that studios don't want to make your movies anymore. I think it's just that you're asking for way too much money. And I don't think you need to be doing that. I think there's a problem. And you know, it's so funny because it's like people will like chastise Marvel movies for making decisions just to get people to soy out in the movie theaters. That's literally the only reason why The Irishman exists. Literally the whole, I'm not going to say the only reason, but one of the big parts about The Irishman is so that people soy out because they're like, oh my God, it's Robert De Niro. He's playing a gangster. Oh, look, it's that actor that I've seen in a Martin Scorsese gangster movie anymore. Look, he's young again. Look. Oh. So, it's okay, Coda. My dog is here. He got concerned because I was going on an epic rant. So, that's the thing. It's like he brings up all of these, like, other film creators that are working under the system. They're making their movies. And I don't necessarily know that those movies need $200 million. So, anyways, I'm sorry, I could soy rant about this for a long time, so we're just gonna move on. Okay. All right. Next up, we got some confusion to hopefully make less confusion or make less confused. The DCU officially has its canon start time. All right, so let's go through these threads. These are posted on Threads. I believe this is a singular thread that I'm looking at right now. I don't know. I still don't know how the Threads terminology works, but James Gunn has said Jolo Maridueña will continue playing Blue Beetle in the DCU, as Viola Davis will Amanda Waller and John Cena will Peacemaker. So he's reiterating that these actors are coming back to play these characters in the DCU. But he also said nothing is canon until Creature Commandos next year. He responded to somebody who said, "You said DC Studios movies and canon start with Superman Legacy. I and many others are still confused. Are the returning actors playing new versions of the same characters? Is this a J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah situation? Nothing is canon until Creature Commandos next year, a sort of aperitif to the DCU, and then a deeper dive into the universe with Superman Legacy after that. It's a very human drive to want to understand everything all the time, but I think it's okay to be confused on what's happening in the DCU since no one has seen anything from the DCU yet. And yes, some actors will be playing characters they've played in other stories, and some plot points might be consistent with plot points from the dozens of films, shows, and animated projects that have come from DC in the past, but nothing is canon until Creature Commandos and Legacy." So, I actually don't think that what he's saying there is necessarily all that confusing. I actually think that the guy that responded to him kind of hit the nail on the head. Based on what he's saying here, based on what he's saying now, it does seem like this is going to be a J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson situation, where, if you remember at the end of Far From Home, J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson showed up, and I don't think anybody went, "What? Are we in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man universe now? Is Tom Holland the same Spider-Man as Tobey Maguire?" I don't think anybody did that. I think we all pretty immediately went, "Oh, so J.K. Simmons is playing J. Jonah Jameson again, but it's not the exact same J. Jonah Jameson from the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies." I feel like we immediately got that. And so it seemed, based on what James Gunn is saying now, it seems like that's basically what it is. The problem is that blatantly contradicts what James has said in the past. Do you remember when he did his big DCU slate reveal? James Gunn said that Shazam 2 and The Flash and Blue Beetle and Aquaman were going to be in the DCU. Like, he said that. He went so far as to say that The Flash was going to reset the universe so that it tees up the DCU. And so that was just a lie. Because if you watch the Flash movie and you get to the end of that movie, I hope that's not what the DCU is. I sincerely hope not. So I think what we have to gather from this is that James Gunn, at the end of the day, is a studio executive. He's not really like the shoot from the hip, truth teller, new kind of studio executive that we were kind of maybe hoping he would be, or that it maybe seemed like he would be. It definitely seemed like he said that about the last 4 DCEU movies, just so that we wouldn't be completely disinterested in seeing them. And that's what it feels like. Like when he says that The Flash is one of the best comic book movies of all time. I don't know that I believe that. Like, I really am starting to think that, he definitely just said that because the Warner Brothers spent so much money on that movie and he wanted people to see it. So I think nowadays, I think we have to start not taking everything James Gunn says at face value. I think that's fair. And I think that now that we're finally getting over a lot of these DCEU movies, I think now that Aquaman is, they clearly don't have any faith in that movie whatsoever. I think now he's starting to be more honest about what the situation is. And if we take what he's just said in that tweet or in that thread post at face value, I actually think that the DCU becomes a lot more understandable and less confusing. Okay? It is a J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson situation. This is a new universe. Some actors will play the same characters, but those characters will not be the same the exact same versions of those characters, right? Like they're, if to use MCU terminology, they're going to be variants of those characters. And like you said, some plot points might be the same. Like you might like the Jaime Reyes might more or less be the same Jaime Reyes. And like if you watch Blue Beetle, you'll kind of understand the backstory. It's kind of like how if you've seen other Batman movies, then you understand a lot of the Batman. Like they never show Bruce Wayne's parents dying, but you understand that they died. And you understand that they died when you watch the Batman. So I get all of that. And I think that makes it a lot less confusing. So yeah, does it necessarily make it less? And also the other thing that I want to point out is that I think when it comes to whether or not general audiences will be confused, I think one of the main reasons why general audiences weren't confused about J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson is because the MCU was so established. Is because Tom Holland was so established that I think they immediately understood that, oh well, it's not like this is now the same Raimi Spider-Man universe, because we already understand Tom Holland and Zendaya to such a high degree that that's not even something that we're gonna think is possible. I think that once Creature Commandos and once Superman Legacy especially comes out, and Superman Legacy especially establishes a new Superman, like really establishes that this is not the DCEU, I think at that point, when we see Peacemaker, John Cena's Peacemaker, when we see Viola Davis as Amanda Waller, when we see Jolo's Blue Beetle, I think when we see those characters come back in, at least this is the hope, that the hope is that the universe is so established that we're not even going to have that confusion. Or, I don't know, maybe James Gunn somehow manages to run DC even more into the ground. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. Next story. All right, we have a plot synopsis for Echo. This is coming from The Direct. Marvel Studios presents Echo, in which Maya Lopez Alaquacox struggles to reconnect with her Native American roots while balancing aspirations tied to a life of crime. As successor to the brutal legacy of Wilson Fisk, Vincent D'Onofrio, aka Kingpin. In the first episode, we are introduced to Maya Lopez and her struggles. In addition, Kingpin's Vincent D'Onofrio received second billing right underneath Echo's main star, Alaquacox. So that's kind of interesting, because one of the big things that a lot of people have been wondering about Echo is that A, they have no interest in the show, and B, are they going to kind of be forced to watch it because Daredevil and Kingpin are going to be in it? And it seems like, yeah, kind of, because it seems like Wilson or Vincent D'Onofrio is going to have a pretty major role in it. And yeah, that I have to say that plot synopsis is a little weird. It's like, are they going to try to turn Echo into like this wholesome show about her having to reconnect with her Native American family or something? Because it's like she's a criminal, like a legit criminal. It's like, are we gonna now see Echo like go back home and have family dinner with her parents and her siblings or something weird like that? I don't know. I'm very curious to see like what this show is even gonna end up being. Is this I mean, that's the thing. This show has to be great. Like, it can't just be okay. It can't just be decent. It's like Echo is starting at a point with audiences where like nobody really cares about this character. And the fact that they gave her own spin-off show, it's like this show has to be really good. So we'll see. Hopefully it is. All right, next up, we got some more stuff to talk about in regards to Nolan potentially directing a Bond movie. It's coming from World of Real. Eon and Amazon are pushing for Nolan, and that he's on board in principle unless his need for creative freedom isn't met. There are sticking points to be ironed out in terms of tone that might scuttle things though. Eon wants a full reboot for the modern era, with Nolan wanting to make adaptations of the Ian Fleming novels in period settings that stick close to the original source material. It's also unclear as to what Amazon wants, apart from money. The goal is to get Nolan to do 2 to 3 films and then have him executive produce going forward. Eon and Amazon are putting all of their eggs in one basket for Nolan due to the fact that he wants the job. He delivers critically and commercially successful films, and he's one of the few directors out there who can put butts in seats on his name alone. If they don't get Nolan, it's literally back to the drawing board. So yeah, so World of Real, it's a website run by a journalist. So it's one of those things where it's not Variety or the Hollywood Reporter, but I mean, we can at least engage with what's being said here. So it seems like what Nolan wants is to set his James Bond movie back in like the 1950s. I think that's when the original books came out. I'm assuming that's when they were set. But he wants like a vintage James Bond movie. And I think that could be kind of cool, because it's like, I don't know that like just another reboot in the modern day, I don't know if that necessarily is going to be different enough from the Daniel Craig Bond movies. And I don't know, man. I think going back, setting it in that time period, that could be really neat. And so it seems like that's obviously one of the sticking points. And my guess is, assuming that all this is true, my guess is that it's going to end up happening, because especially considering what they said at the end there, where they're putting all their eggs in Christopher Nolan right now, because it's like I've said this before, if Christopher Nolan wants to direct a Bond movie, the powers that be are going to make it so that Christopher Nolan directs a Bond movie. I don't see how that doesn't happen. Like, that would be like one of the biggest fumbles in cinematic history. Unless it really is the case that Nolan literally just wants to direct one movie and he doesn't want anybody else to direct movies after that. Like, if those are his stipulations, then sure, I could see them maybe not end up going through with it. But if Nolan is cool directing 2 or 3 movies and then executive producing like 2 or 3 other movies after that, I don't see how it doesn't happen. So yeah, we'll eventually have to see. But I definitely think that Nolan's pitch sounds cool, assuming that it's true. And we'll have to see. All right, so we're gonna get into how the WGA strike has ended, but apparently the video game, or SAG, I should say, has voted to unionize video games. So this is coming from VGC. Members of SAG-AFTRA, the labor union for American actors, have voted overwhelmingly in favor of potential video game strike action. Union members voted 98.32% in favor of strike authorization regarding the interactive media agreement, which covers members' work on video games. While this doesn't necessarily mean a strike is going to be called yet, it does mean that if SAG-AFTRA doesn't get terms it considers acceptable while negotiating the interactive media agreement, it can call a strike right away, knowing its members already support the decision. So far, negotiations have failed due to what SAG-AFTRA calls unacceptable terms on some of the issues most critical to our members, including wages that keep up with inflation, protections around exploitative uses of artificial intelligence, and basic safety precautions. So yeah, it seems like we could see a potential video game strike. And I'm not going to lie, I don't know how successful a strike against the video games industry would be. Again, not having worked in these industries, it feels like video games are not nearly as dependent on actors as movies are. And I honestly don't know if they were to strike against the video games industry, I feel like the video games industry would just be like, okay, we're not using you anymore. That's what it feels like. I don't know. So we'll see. But I mean, I definitely would like, obviously, to see them get more pay. Protections against AI are all existential at this point, because that stuff is just really terrifying. So we'll see. I'm rooting for them. All right, next story. All right, so Matthew Vaughn. So in the same article as the James Bond article, this is what they said about Matthew Vaughn potentially directing DC. This is what they had to say. This is like at the very end of that Christopher Nolan James Bond article. It sounds like the once rumored Matthew Vaughn is out, and this is in regards to him directing James Bond. It sounds like the once rumored Matthew Vaughn is out, as he's committed to the DC universe for the immediate future. Nobody else is being considered for now, at least until Nolan gives a concrete answer. So, yeah, it seems like they just threw that in there. It seems like Matthew Vaughn is out as a potential James Bond director because he's fully committed to DC. That sounds very interesting. So if you don't know Matthew Vaughn, he directed the Kick-Ass movies. He directed X-Men First Class. And he's also directed like the Kingsman movies. So he's definitely a director that I feel like would work well with James Gunn. And I feel like his sensibilities would lend to the types of movies that James Gunn usually makes. So I definitely could see them being friends and wanting to work together. As far as what movie would Matthew Vaughn direct, people have been talking about The Authority, and I think that makes a lot of sense. And I'm trying to look at the current slate that we have. It's like, I don't necessarily think that he would want to direct, or I guess I should say, as far as the movies that we know is happening, it's like, I don't know that he would do like that Supergirl movie. I don't know. The only other project that I can think of, just looking at it, I could maybe see him directing that Booster Gold show, depending on what that show ends up being like. I could see Matthew Vaughn directing that, but I don't know. Now, off the top of my head, I'm not sure what else he would direct. My guess would be The Authority. All right, next story. House of the Dragon has finished filming, so this is coming from Variety. HBO is eager to take fans back to Westeros for more backstabbing, incest, and power plays, with the second season of House of the Dragon targeting a summer 2024 premiere and looking ahead to a yet-to-be-ordered third season of the Game of Thrones prequel. While House of the Dragon was able to wrap filming on Season 2 during the strikes, as the scripts were already complete and the production is under a UK union contract. So, yeah, interesting stuff. House of the Dragon has just been filming this whole time, because it's technically not under SAG, so it wasn't a part of the actors strike. So they're not scabbers, Don't go harass the cast on social media. Apparently, it would actually be like illegal for the UK union to like strike in solidarity with SAG. It's like they can't just do that, so they're not scabbing. But yeah, cool. I really like the first season, and I'm excited for the second. All right, it seems like The Marvels is going to end up being short. It's coming from CBR. The latest addition to the MCU is set to be its shortest film, with a runtime of just 105 minutes. AMC Theaters confirmed the runtime after conflicting reports. This breaks the previous record held by The Incredible Hulk and Thor: The Dark World, which both ran for 112 minutes, making The Marvels a 7-minute shorter cinematic experience. Yeah, I'm personally not somebody that gets too invested in runtimes. Like, every movie is unique. Every movie has its own runtime that either makes it too short or too long. So I'm reporting this, but I feel like people get way too invested in runtimes, and they're like, "Oh, it's too short. Oh, it's too long." It's like, no, we have no idea until we see the movie. So, next story. So the Knights of the Old Republic remake has had a lot of troubles, and it's seemingly trying to be wiped, like just the mention of the game is seemingly trying to be wiped off the internet. So it's coming from VGC. It was recently noticed that the tweet from the main PlayStation Twitter account announcing the game has been deleted, while the title's reveal trailer has been made private. So yeah, you can't find the PlayStation tweet announcing the game, nor the PlayStation trailer on YouTube. Wow. So if you don't know, the developer of this game, Asper Media, I think it was called, basically what happened was they showed off a development build of the game to Sony and Lucasfilm, and Sony and Lucasfilm was like, "This is so bad, we are going to take this game away from you now. You guys are no longer developing this game." And it's apparently been given to like another studio. But the fact that now they're trying to wipe its existence from the internet makes it seem like this game might just be straight up canceled. Yeah, I don't know. And, it's unfortunate because I've tried playing Knights of the Old Republic. It's just not my kind of game. I didn't really understand how the controls or like the combat worked and whatnot. I actually would have really wanted like a like a big, flashy, more like action type of game from it. So that would have been something that would have gotten me to play Knights of the Old Republic. So yeah, that's unfortunate, but we'll see if it actually is canceled or if just other shenanigans are at play. All right, so next up, apparently a Rick and Morty movie might be in the cards. This is coming from The Hollywood Reporter. Pre-strike, Harmon even had a serious conversation with executives at Warner Brothers about a Rick and Morty feature. He says they were all aligned on a kind of super episode conceit, the way that Matt Stone and Trey Parker approached the South Park movie years ago. He has plenty more percolating in development too, including a musical and a multicam. I'd have to check with my accountant, but it may be possible that the grand total of all these things is similar enough to the net of an overall deal that maybe I can finally go, all right, that's television, folks, he says. So, yeah, I wanted to read all of that because it is interesting that... So, yeah, I did want to read all of that because it seems like what Dan Harmon is hinting at is that he might end Rick and Morty with a movie. That's what it seems like. So I think that would be interesting. I think that would be ideal. I think that at this point, I don't know. I haven't watched Rick and Morty, but it does feel like a lot of the fans are kind of feeling like the show's kind of still going on. It could probably end at this point. So yeah, I don't know. Let me know what you think if you've been keeping up with Rick and Morty. Do you want it to end? Would you like to see it end with a movie? We'll see. All right, speaking of animated movies, Tron might end up getting an animated movie. It's come from CBR. In an interview with Collider, Disney's Jennifer Lee noted that the company often talks about the potential of a Tron animated project and that she would be happy to pitch it to any director who is up for taking on the challenge. You know, here's what you can say back to him. That I will promise to do at my next director's lunch. Once a month, I just have lunch with all the directors together, and I'm going to say, there has been a request. Is there anyone here who has been dreaming of that to happen? We're filmmaker-driven, so then I can blame them if that doesn't happen. Oh, no, I'm joking. Or I'm teasing. Just tell them that I'm going to write that down and bring that to them unfairly. I haven't done that yet, so I will. I love that. So, yeah, it seems like one of the producers or whatever at Disney... or I guess Disney has been just like throwing out the idea of a Tron animated movie. There aren't any directors attached or anything. And honestly, it's like I liked Tron Uprising. It feels like Tron just isn't a property that's ever gonna catch on. I don't know. Like we'll see. They're doing a new live action Tron movie, but I feel like trying to spin it off into animation before you even manage to make a successful live action one might be a fool's errand. But we'll see. I like Tron Uprising. It's really the only Tron thing that I've ever liked. But also, I watched it as a kid, and I don't really remember it. So I don't necessarily have much of a strong stance on all of this. Okay, next story. Vigilante. James Gunn announced that he's also coming back. So on Thread, he said yes. Freddy as Vigilante is still around. Freddie Stroma, I believe, is the actor that played Vigilante. And again, I think it's going to be another J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah situation where this actor is still going to be playing this character in the DCU, but that doesn't make Peacemaker season 1 canon necessarily. So yeah, we'll see. Next up, let's get into the WGA deal that they finally got with the AMPDP. So it's a lot to read, but we're going to read it all. In addition to the standard increase in minimum pay, this deal introduces a provision to ensure that younger feature writers are guaranteed a second step. This means that if a writer is hired by a studio to produce a draft for less than double the guild's minimum, they are automatically offered the opportunity to create a second draft before another writer can come in. In the realm of series, the guild has successfully secured minimum staffing requirements for development or mini-rooms, as well as standard writers' rooms based on the number of episodes. This positive development ensures a more evenly distributed workload and increases the diversity of voices involved in creating shows. However, it is essential to note that this won't impact writers hired to write an entire series single-handedly. This addresses concerns that some fans and had about potentially losing the unique creative voice of shows like The White Lotus and The Last of Us, which were developed by a single writer or writing team. For shows with a writer's room, there is now a guarantee that 2 of the staff writers must be retained during production to assist the showrunner and gain experience in producing something they wrote. In both features and series, this protection ensures that junior writers have the opportunity to learn by actively participating in the production process, better preparing them to become future showrunners. Before, there was genuine concern that studios might attempt to bypass or even replace writers with advancing AI technology. The new agreement safeguards against this by explicitly stating that AI cannot be considered a writer on a Hollywood production, and studios cannot compel writers to collaborate with AI. It also specifies that a studio cannot use content created by a writer to train its own large language models. The Guild sought greater data transparency from streaming platforms to ensure their members received success bonuses. In the final agreement, a compromise was reached. The data will be shared with select Guild members under the protection of a non-disclosure agreement, allowing them to verify that the bonuses are applied correctly. However, this information will not be made public. Writers will only be informed if their streaming show or movie surpasses the 20% viewership threshold among a platform's subscribers. So there was a lot there. Basically, they're getting paid more, so that's good. It seems like writers are now being given more opportunities to participate in the production of the shows, which is a good way to industry-wide just train future showrunners and stuff like that. They have protections against AI, which is something that I'm very invested in. I'm really scared by AI. And then they're not giving residuals, but it seems like now they're getting bonuses based off of how a show does on streaming, which is one of the really not great things about streaming, is that it basically killed residuals, which was a way that writers would be able to sustain themselves after their show is released, but B, incentivized good writing, which is something that wasn't really happening on streaming. So overall, this seems like a good deal. Obviously I'm not a writer, so if anybody has more information, let me know how maybe it could have been better or could have been worse. Let me know in the comments below. All right, last story of the day. It seems like the Marvel is now accepting pitches for an X-Men MCU movie. It's coming from Deadline. Sources tell Deadline that Marvel will start setting writer meetings later this fall for pitches on its anticipated X-Men movie. Insiders add there is no rush to fill the job since the film hasn't been dated yet, and it's more than likely that writer decision will be made at the top of 2024. Marvel declined comment. So obviously we knew that Marvel was going to make an X-Men movie at some point, so this doesn't necessarily come as much of a surprise, but it is interesting to note that they haven't really made that much progress on it. It's interesting to know that this isn't a movie that was like super far in development. So yeah, I have to say, this really does seem like a turning point where, and this is something that I've noticed on Twitter. I don't know. It seems like there isn't as much excitement about an MCU X-Men movie as there was at the end of Endgame. And I just think that's just interesting to note that I really do feel a palpable lack of excitement for the MCU right now. And I think that's something they have to ameliorate. And I think that they're now making the steps necessary to do so. They're making less content. Or at least they're going to. And Kevin Feige is, I guess, going to get back on that, focusing on quality and, being more involved in projects. But yeah, man, it's just something that I've noticed, just the palpable lack of excitement for the MCU right now. So we'll see if they're able to bring it back. We'll see if by the time this X-Men movie comes out, we're all, yay, yippee, MCU is good. I don't know. We'll see. Or maybe the X-Men movie never happens because all the Marvel movies flop from here on out. But yeah, we shall see. And that will be the end. That is how we will wrap up this episode of Nerdy Movie News Roundup. Yeah, we had a lot of stories to get through, but it felt good to have like a good, decent chunk of stories to talk about. Let me know what you think about any and all of those in the comments down below. And I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.